Welcome, everybody. My name's Ishan, and on behalf of everyone at G5A, welcome to another session of Should Art 2020. This morning, I'm joined with David Luff, who's the creative director at Soho Theatre in London, who we've worked with in the past. And we're sort of just going to have a conversation about how we've worked together and what we're planning for the future, and a little sort of context of the session and conversations following this one. Hi, David.
Hi, Ishan. How are you?
I'm good. We're really looking forward to this. I'm glad we were able to, find the time. And make it happen. So I guess I was, what would be great is, like we were discussing before, is just to talk about how G5A and Soho Theatre sort of connected, right? Because I think it was pretty serendipitous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let me give a little bit of context for Soho Theatre, about Soho Theatre. So Soho Theatre is a theatre with its own building in the heart of London. So we're based in Soho, and we have been on Dean Street for 20 years. Before that, we were a smaller theatre company that had many different homes, and the company was founded in late 60s, early 70s. Really a fringe theatre company with its roots in queer punk performance and that spirit of the fringe, new writing, inhabiting new spaces, telling stories that hadn't been told. And as the years grew, the company grew as well, and then we in the mid-90s undertook a big fundraising campaign and got our building in 2000.
Okay.
And so since then, that's been kind of the second generation of Soho Theatre, and we have established ourselves as a leading theatre for playwriting, so for new writing, and then in the last 10-15 years also become a really leading player for comedy and for cabaret. So our building has got 3 different spaces, and so we can house a festival of theatre and comedy and cabaret all year round. At least, when in normal times. So it's very difficult at the moment. We've had an interest in playwriting from around the world and different cultures within the UK since our early years, and particularly with writers from Indian heritages, and so we produced early plays by Tanika Gupta and Gurpreet Kaur Bhatti, who are both now very leading playwrights in the UK, and that's continuing to this day. But I suppose our particular connection with working in India and building collaborations with Indian companies kicked off about a decade ago. Soho Theatre really specifically wanted to reach out to a completely new culture, a completely new theatre scene and comedy scene. And so in maybe about 10 years ago, started building links with a company in Bangalore, and had a playwriting course there for 10-year-olds with the plays produced at Soho Theatre at the end. And we toured a play there as well. But really everything changed around 2016, 2017 with the British Council funded Reimagine project. This was celebrating 70 years since Indian independence, and we put together a proposal to tour comedy and theatre to India. And I guess the relationship with G5A kind of came out of a really, as you say, serendipitous chance meeting with one of your creative consultants or board members, Divya Bhatia, who I met at Adelaide Festival at the start of 2017. And so we happened to be on the same kind of group going on an outing seeing plays in Adelaide. And he started telling me about this fantastic theatre that he was involved in Mumbai. And it just lodged in my brain. And so that was a really excellent kind of starting point. So from that point onwards, I kind of made sure I kind of stayed in touch with Divya, and as things progressed, we managed to get Halfbreed, the play by Natasha Marshall, booked with you to be playing there in November.
I mean, the play itself, of course, I think it was so incredibly powerful, and which I think obviously must be one of the reasons why it had sort of that impact. And I think the wonderful thing about it, like we were saying, is that there were so many different factors in play to actually make it happen. But since then, I think it's sort of stayed, at least personally, it's stayed with me, and definitely with the rest of us at G5A, because I think, we were used to seeing, even I think that would have been almost we were in 3 years of the warehouse, so we would have done a lot of shows up to that point. But I think the main thing, or the difference with hosting Halfbreed for this period of time, was, I think, just the duration, and sort of how we had so many shows back to back, and then also how many, not how many, but just how it was able to settle and sort of break into the space, which was something that, at least for us, in a personal experience, I mean, you hear it, right? I think with like West End and Broadway runs where a single show plays for over and over, and you have that like idea in theory that, okay, obviously the more we do this, the better we'll get, in sort of an oversimplified description. But I think what we saw with hosting Halfbreed is that we almost saw it right in front of our eyes, and how it happened, and also in a space that we were so aware of and so comfortable with, and we sort of knew, and it really, I think it resonated in that we'd seen so many different local theatre groups that ended up spending so much of their time just working out the logistics of moving from theatre to theatre. And I think in that, that's sort of, so the energy required for that is of a different kind, right? And I think when you're trying to push your performance or the piece that you're working on, you need that balance of sort of the adrenaline, but also the quiet and sort of reflective time as well. So like when you have that real balance is when you're able to make those, I guess, decisions that, in a long term have a lasting effect. And I think what ended up happening, just because of the way the ecosystem or the situation is, that a lot of theatre groups would perform one show in one theatre and then move to another theatre, and sort of really, and if they were lucky, they'd get another weekend like that down the line. But I think what really, it sort of just, I guess it sort of just clicked, right, was that if we were able to build this space where theatre groups could come in and they could, just focus on the setup and do that work, and then they didn't have to worry about it, for X number of days. And that's something that, I think last season, when we sort of switched our calendar format, it's one of the things that we really pushed, and we felt that, we just had to take that plunge almost, because it wasn't something that we could ask for funding, or, it wasn't something that we could, get people to come on board for, unless we just did it. We sort of had to just take that leap, and I think we did. Obviously the pandemic left our season sort of unfinished, but we did 3 what we call performance long runs, and I think we were able to see that already, and I think for our first half season, it was really reassuring for all of us, and I think it really did, sort of the seeds were planted, and so when we had Halfbreed.
Fantastic.
So, you know, I think that's really what we're looking forward to, hopefully, whenever we can get back.
And looking forward to the future. So we have our writers course happening in January and February, which we'll be announcing very, very soon.
Yeah, exactly.
And this will be the next phase of deepening our relationship between G5A Foundation and Soho Theatre. And my colleagues Jules and Lakesha can be chatting with Sarah, which we'll be hearing on this interview just after this. And what we're hoping is that will be a really deep and collaborative way of both us sharing some of the writing techniques that we've developed over the last many years with students that you are able to find, or participants that you're able to source. But equally for us to be working out ways of cross-cultural collaboration between Mumbai writers and the theatre techniques that they bring to what we can be doing in the UK. So I think it is going to be this really fantastic potential for many years of being able to go back and forth.
I mean, I think just what we were really excited. You know, I think that when we spoke, I think it was last year for the longer version of the writers' workshop. I think what our intent, you know, with that is really how do we take sort of the theatre groups and the theatre scene in the city and country, which is, you know, really, I guess just there's so much talent there. And so many different people wanting to, you know, work in theatre and sort of explore that as a medium. And I think that, you know, what our focus was just is that looking at how can we sort of push that from a craft point of view, you know, because I think what's happened is that with I guess just different like backgrounds and different like Indian contexts have so much. I've always been focused on oral traditions a lot, and I think that sort of naturally or organically moved into theatre that's a bit more devised, like we've been speaking. And I think that it can only be complemented with writing, with sort of working on writing craft. You know, and I think that's something that we really, because there's some incredible works that we've seen that have been, you know, mostly that have begun on the floor, so to speak. And we're sort of, our hope at least is to use all of that experience and knowledge, and how do we push it even further, right? Yeah,
fantastic. And then I also hope that there'll be ways of us finding writers and theatre makers that then we can co-produce as well, and find people to have shows in Mumbai and London and wider UK and India.
Exactly.
You know, that feels to me that's the future, and now it's that development stage, you know. If there's one thing that we can be doing during this crazy period of pandemic, it's about investing in the next generation of writers and makers.
Absolutely.
And helping them make their work so that when actually live performance can happen again, we can start touring and producing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, well, look, great to talk with you, Ishan. And
now wonderful.
Sarah Dodd, who's our touring and festivals producer at Soho Theatre, and she will be speaking with Jules Haworth and Lakesha Arie-Angelo about our writing and our creative learning programs, and also speaking with Shappi Khorsandi, who's a very prominent UK comedian who brought work to India a year or so ago, whose piece we're making available for people attending these talks to watch. So there'll be a couple of interviews with them following this.
Great, really looking forward to that.
Hi, Lakesha and Jules. Thank you so much for talking with me today about Soho Theatre and our writers program and the exciting collaboration we've got coming up in 2021 with G5A. Lakesha is our associate director, and Jules is our education producer. And I suppose I wanted to kick off by asking you both if you could broadly outline the kind of work that we currently do with writers in the UK and in London, and the writers program, Writers Lab, that we currently run and have been running through lockdown this year.
I was like, oh, who's going to go first? I guess I'll talk a little bit about Writers Lab, and then we can talk about other bits and pieces as well. Jules, feel free to jump in when you're ready. So we run a program called Writers Lab, which is a writing program for people aspiring to write plays, write for theatre. And it's a 9-month program that we guide we guide 48 people along the journey to create their first, or create a full-length play. We assign them with a dramaturg as well, so someone from the Soho team, and we have a bit of a way in for them to be able to support each other through that process as well, so kind of looking at each other's work and giving each other feedback, etc., etc. And so it's a 9-month program that allows them the space and the time to write, to get tools, to share the experience, to network and all that jazz. So that's one really fun way in. And there are loads of kind of writers that we've worked with on that program have gone off to do, amazing, great things nationally and internationally. One being Tash Marshall, who wrote a play called Halfbreed on programme, which we toured UK-wide and then over to India and Mumbai. So that's really one great success story, as well as many others, but that's one that we're really particularly proud on. That's allowed us to be able to have a bit more of a connection with G5A, which we're really happy with. Jules,
yeah,
anything else you wanted to?
I was just going to say, it was I visited the tour in Mumbai when we were over there, and it was fantastic to see how that play and Tash, who we'd had started like on the program, we developed to do both a UK tour and a tour in India, and how brilliant it was to kind of access different audiences and engage with them in a completely different country. I suppose that was the British Council funded tour as part of the Reimaginate one, I think, back in 2017. But hopefully once things start opening up, there'll be lots of other opportunities to do that, especially with this collaboration.
We also have our Verity Bargate Award in the UK, which is our national playwriting competition that is open to writers that are based in the UK and Ireland. And really, with things like the Verity Bargate Award and with Writers Lab, it's really about connecting with people who may not have written before. It's really a kind of open space where people with lots of different backgrounds can kind of engage with playwriting, even if they haven't done that before. And with our national competition, the Verity Bargate Award, there's an opportunity for the winning play to be produced by Soho Theatre, which is such an exciting way for a new writer to have their work actually created on stage in collaboration with the theatre and in collaboration with an artistic team and people like Lakesha, so that we can really hold their hands through that process. So it can be quite daunting for a new writer to kind of jump into something if it's completely fresh and they've not done it before. So it's nice to support them and hold their hands through the process.
Yeah. Is there any particular way that you look to engage writers onto the programme? You talk about those sort of unheard voices. Like, is there anything that you specifically do when you're looking for applicants?
In the UK version of Writers Lab, we do taster workshops so that people can come and try out the Writers Lab for a couple of hours, and they're usually really popular. We do them every summer while the applications are open. We also try to make sure that the language that we use on the course and on the application is just quite open and accessible. It's not particularly academic, I would say, even though people might say that you learn things similar to what you might learn in like a degree or MA. We try to make everything really accessible so that if somebody doesn't have any experience of theatre whatsoever, they don't feel excluded or outside of the conversation. It's very much designed by, with and for people that are new to theatre, because we really do think that anybody can share stories, make stories, and connect with other people through stories, which is exactly what Tash did with Halfbreed. You know, that was a story that she wrote and performed herself, quite close to her lived experience of growing up in an area of the UK, and through supporting her to develop that piece through the Writers' Lab, we were then able to take it to the UK and to India to share it with audiences that also may have found theatre the first time through that piece. So that's a really nice example. Keisha, anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, well, yeah, you said it all really, but I think absolutely that I think we try to ensure that that we're always, you know, connecting with new artists as well and different audience members and stuff like that. So we, you know, us on the artistic team, we try and see as much theatre and see many, you know, really new upcoming artists as well, and open up those channels of communication. And I feel like what's great at the moment that we're at is that we've kind of got a good reputation of being able to kind of spread the word far and wide, and so hopefully that, you know, people speak to people and know about this program that feels accessible and feels like it's for them. So that's something that we've been able to build over the years, which is a really great space to be in. And there's always work to do. And I think with our work in Walthamstow has been great, because that's a new area for us to move into, with a new building and developing wider audience there, so people that may not be engaging much theatre or other cultural bits and pieces. So that's a nice area for us to tap into potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose deepening our relationship with the work we've done in India up to now, and specifically this formal relationship with G5A in the form of the writers program in 2021, sort of sparks a whole new kind of area of opportunity to collaborate more and engage in sort of a deeper way with Indian artists. And I wonder if there's anything in particular that is exciting about that sort of kind of cross-cultural collaboration between British artists and Indian artists, and when you're running the programs and engaging with that group, if there's anything that you think, you know, might happen or change, or I guess it's a kind of a new world for us.
Yeah, really exciting. It's been really exciting to hear from G5A how new this is as an idea for them, and how they want to try and tap into new audiences and new artists that they're not currently engaging with. So for us to be able to share our skills to enable them to do that is really great. So discovering the new talent I'm really excited about, and seeing how, exactly what you're saying, the kind of cross-cultural element will work and function, and how that can really create some really amazing new work potentially. So yeah, it's a great, every kind of new adventure like that is really exciting to be a part of, and it's a learning process. It's going to be a learning process for both of us as associate companies together. So yeah, lots of things to look forward to in that front. And hopefully we're going to be able to create a new kind of ecology of theatre that is very outward facing, internationally facing, and hopefully drawing on loads of different resources, loads of different I guess skill sets and cultural aspects as well. So it's really great, it's really exciting. Jules, were you looking forward to anything in particular?
I'm really excited to see the similarities and the differences between how artists in the UK and artists in India communicate and write, because a lot of the time it is writers writing from their own lived experience or from things that are influencing them kind of day to day. And I'm sure there will be some similarities between what writers in the UK are thinking about and talking about and what artists in India are kind of curious about. But there also may be some total differences. And for me, as somebody that hasn't been to India before, I'm really excited to just to soak up some culture virtually, you know, through what the writers might share with us. And I'm just really excited to kind of hear their stories and get to know them, really. I think it's going to be a really fun and interesting journey and a real exchange of skills and creativity. It's very much a kind of collaboration where we'll all be learning a lot from each other, and I'm really excited to get started.
Oh, that's brilliant. I agree. And I think for anyone who's not written before, are there any top tips that you might have for someone who's starting to think about it or starting to think about that they might want to start writing?
Good question. Just start. I know it sounds easy said than done, but I think just any ideas you have bubbling in your head, just kind of find somewhere that you can write it down with a pen and paper or on your laptop or anything that you have. Just kind of get those ideas out and keep writing in different forms as well, even if you don't think they're kind of creative writing. So like writing a diary or writing lists, writing down bits of conversation that you've heard, you know, around on your journey, travels around, things like that. And also just not being afraid to write what you really want to write about. I think we often feel that we have to write, particularly where we see different types of theatre or TV or films, I feel like we should have to emulate something else, but actually the best work comes from when it's written just from your heart, from what you want to talk about. Essentially whatever you want to talk about, someone else wants to hear. Yeah, so that's really, I think it's really key.
I totally agree with everything that Lakesha's just said, and I really think that sometimes people think that they shouldn't write because they're not seeing themselves represented in stories that they're consuming, so they kind of think themselves out of it, of like, oh, you know, I'm not good enough, or I don't think anybody wants to hear my story, or I don't think this will resonate with people. But the reality is that we're all really hungry to connect with other humans, right? And you can really do that through writing. It can also just be a really good way, a really good tool for self-expression. You know, where we're not able to kind of connect human to human so much these days, actually just writing things down or writing somebody a letter, like there are so many ways that you can kind of creatively express yourself through writing, that doesn't have to be scary. And it can turn into things like, you know, there's blogs that you can make. You could write a little scene. Why not give yourself that kind of exercise or target to like write something down? And sometimes deadlines can be really useful. So maybe setting yourself deadlines, or maybe if you and a friend are both thinking like, oh, let's try a bit of writing, you could set each other deadlines and have a discussion about what you've written and so on, so that you're not doing it alone, and so that you feel like you're part of something and you're going on a journey with somebody with your words.
Will there be deadlines in the G5A Soho Theatre 2021 Writers Programme?
I'm sure there will. We love a deadline, don't we, Keisha?
Absolutely. I think they're just really useful to hold yourself accountable to what you've chosen to start on the journey. So I think they're really useful. Stressful, yeah, but useful.
It sounds like it's a case of sort of discipline in stretching your writing muscles and being happy to kind of make mistakes and just get on with it and get it out there and sort of learn the techniques from the experts, from, you know, and hone and develop. Yeah. Well, listen, I think it's there's so much potential for unleashing creativity internationally now, and this sort of digital platform for engaging with G5A, I think, will be really exciting. But thank you both so much for chatting to me, and we will look forward to seeing what's to come.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's been fun.
Hi, Shappi. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you doing, Sarah?
Yes, not too bad. It's a fine day up here. So, yeah, we're all doing well.
It's a good day down here too.
Good. Thank you so much for chatting to us about your work with Soho Theatre and India and all our sort of future potential collaborating with Indian artists. I wanted to sort of start by asking you about your own experiences in comedy. And I guess you've had a career of over 20 years working as a performer and novelist. And I wonder, what was it that first sort of got you writing, and how did that process develop into performing stand-up in particular?
Well, writing is something I have done since I was a child. You know, in the days before computers and all of that kind of stuff, reading and writing is how I passed the time. I was a child who was constantly taken with my brother to parties with my parents. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, nobody had money for babysitters, so we just went with them everywhere, and it was boring, really boring at these parties that I'm sure were a lot of fun for the adults, but for us kids, really dull. And if there weren't other kids to play with, especially dull. So I would always have a notepad with me, and I would write. From when I was little, it was literally to have something to do. My father is a writer, and he wrote at night, and often he would sleep during the day and then he'd surface and write. And I remember, you know, coming down after I brushed my teeth, or coming down in the middle of the night to fetch a glass of water, and that would be the only time when our house was still and quiet. And I remember him sitting there with a cigarette in one hand and vodka in a glass, neat vodka, writing his poetry. He's a very accomplished poet. My dad is a well-known poet in Iran. And to me, that was just so glorious, you know. And I kind of wanted to be like him, I guess. But although it did come naturally, it was escapism writing. And I wanted to write books from a very early age. But it's really difficult to write books in terms of time. You have to stay in. And when I was very young, I absolutely had no interest in staying home. I was always out. Which I don't regret, because I draw on it now, all of that period. I draw on all of it when I'm writing. And I remember my dad used to say to me, every time I had a bad experience or a bad time, he'd say, look, you'll use it creatively one day. And it's a nice way to find peace for me in my life, to write about things.
That's amazing. That's such an exciting way to have kind of had it as part of your childhood, and then drawing from, you know, how you managed it, you know, going out, but then using those experiences now, and it kind of all building up and fitting together. It just feels like something that was like part of you and your family, and like innate. It's amazing.
Well, it's a way of communicating with yourself. Like, I never finished anything. I wasn't one of those children that wrote a novel at 12.
Yeah.
I was still the attention deficit disorder person that I am now, but I would write, and it is a way of making sense of your world, or escaping it, or communicating with yourself. And you know, I've always been a daydreamer, never had much interest in reality at all. And then I got bogged down in reality, I think, with stand-up. Because of my background, because I'm Iranian, because I was a refugee, and because I am, you know, politically very opinionated, I did go and say yes to a lot of things that involve talking about that kind of thing and doing political debate shows, which frankly I'm no good at. And it's a really lovely time at the moment for me, because there's so much going on politically, and we have Twitter and we have the internet, and I've got to a point where I've gone, nobody needs my opinion on Donald Trump. Nobody. No one. Everything that I want to say, a billion other people are already saying. So it's time to be a kid again and do the things that I love doing, which is writing. So I'm really enjoying it now more than I ever have, because I'm sort of reconnecting with being a child again, outside of this world where, you know, we forgot lockdowns and Trump and Brexit and all of this stuff, which I'm not flippant about, but it doesn't need me.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can neglect what you really love and get sucked in to what's going on globally, thinking it's an illusion that you're being an activist, and actually you're stalling your own joy and your own creativity and your own life. So I've been really aware of that lately, and being aware that the internet is new to all of us. You know, it's 2009, 10 years, 11 years of my life Twitter has had. That's enough, right? That's enough. Yeah. I want it back.
It seems like there's a sense of like engaging with all of that stuff kind of can deplete you, and that actually to put something back into the world that's like nourishing and positive for you and, you know, people on the receiving end, is to kind of cultivate the things that feel meaningful to you and make you feel like you're communicating and, you know, processing things in the way that you want.
I think that's the nail on the head, you know. That really is the nail on the head, actually sitting back to process things, and also reading long form, having long form conversations. It's why I love podcasts, because they actually give us breathing space instead of the knee-jerk, ego-led debate that goes on a lot of social media. I'm very aware of that. You know, smarter people than me were aware of it long before me, but I've sort of got to a point where I realised a massive part of that was procrastination, you know, because none of it has helped. It's not like, you know, Trump's gone and we've got teddy bears in charge. No.
Well, I guess like a lot of your material is quite autobiographical.
Yes.
And especially, you know, the film that you did for our Soho Theatre on Demand platform.
Yes.
Talk kind of a lot about your family and of your experience working in the UK comedy industry. What is kind of your way of translating, or do you have a particular way of translating those kind of personal experiences that potentially feel quite acute at the time, kind of into writing and, you know, comedy and in like looking at them humorously?
Well, that goes back to what my dad said about every bad thing becomes a creative endeavour. With the Soho On Demand show that I did at the Soho Theatre, which, by the way, I miss that place so much. everything I talk about there is stuff that, although on stage it seems like I'm joking about it, there's very real emotion behind all of it. But with stand-up, you have an experience. For me, I have an experience. I have a strong emotional reaction to that experience, whether it be love, whether it be anger, whether it be upsetting to me. And some time goes by, and I let that emotion settle, and then you can really laugh about it. In the past, I've talked about stuff on stage that's actually happening in the here and now, and I'm feeling those emotions. And I imagine some of it was made for an interesting evening for some people in the audience, someone that's, you know, really spinning their guts on stage. But as a comic, I wouldn't do that again, because stand-up comedy shouldn't be used in the place of actual self-care, you know, which is, I think, what I thought I was doing. I'm from the very sort of 90s brand of comedy, and I'm very sort of, yeah, this is fine, you can say what you like. But looking back, I think I was going through a divorce, and I talked about that so much on stage before I'd given myself a chance to heal. And I learned that lengthens healing process, because, you know, and I, even though my comedy is very autobiographical, there are some things I now no longer talk about. I don't talk about on stage, and one of them is divorce, and what it was like getting a divorce. Because frankly, it's still a very personal mountain for me, that I'm not sure I'm all the way up and back down the other side again. So, but other things that are long in the past, it's good fun to have to make fun of, and to make myself the butt of the jokes most of the time. Just the ridiculousness when you get things wrong. I find times when I'm embarrassed really good sources for material, when I've just done something that makes me cringe, or, you know, put them in a show.
Yeah, it feels like it's like almost a relief to get it out there and laugh about it, and like dispel that, like, yeah, the sort of sense of embarrassment by doing that.
Yeah, like the time I took a cake to a rapper's party. I took a cake. This rapper invited me to a party, and I'd never been invited to a rapper's party before. He's a hip-hop artist, and of course it was a massive showbiz extravaganza, and I was the idiot that thought it was a barbecue at his mum's house. And I took a cake.
That's so nice.
I had to get rid of it. It was a wasted cake. I just sort of plonked it in a corner and pretended I didn't leave it there.
You probably found it the next day and was just like, this is such a nice thing.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes I think what I find funny about myself is how completely ill-suited I am to the world of show business. I find television completely ridiculous, because it's a game and it's a performance, whereas I don't see stand-up as so much of a performance. I see it as a bigger version of my personality, and you know, rather than have a few friends in a pub talking, I have a whole room full of people that I'm talking to, and that's what it is for me. And it's okay not to be ambitious about the big shiny telly persona, because I'm self-aware but also really unaware at the same time. And I just don't really know how to work it, and nor do I have an interest in knowing how to work it. And that's quite a nice place to be, to sort of realise what gives you joy and what doesn't, you know.
Yeah, right. It's like the stage for you is where you can kind of be your authentic self in a sense, and not have to kind of like live up to that showbiz expectation of what gets put out. And it's about the joy. Like, you know, I get joy walking off the stage at the Soho, or other theatres are available at
and having, you know, had a live audience, I never come off a TV show feeling joy. Because maybe it's because I've had fun, don't get me wrong, I've had real fun, but I just think there's a real difference between someone sort of having a cup of tea and munching their toast and watching you, to someone investing their time, getting a babysitter, you know, and all of those things, and then really making a connection. Radio is different. Radio is a whole different thing. I feel that connection with radio. Because people, you know, radio people, I think are my people, hugely my people, in terms of they want to make a different sort of connection with the medium than TV viewers. It's all so different. It's under the same umbrella, but it's hugely different way of communicating and expressing yourself.
Yeah. Well, I suppose thinking about Soho Theatre and performing on its stages, like hopefully it will be happening again in the not too distant future. But you've obviously performed there a bunch of times for many years, and I wonder what for a performer, for a comedian, for a comic, what sort of role do you think Soho Theatre kind of plays within the UK comedy industry?
Soho Theatre is the theatre that all comics want to play. Like, it's a part of your career trajectory. Like, oh, I'm doing Soho, yes, and it's and I see it on the other side. I mean, obviously I'm a board member, but I'm also a comic, and I see the frustrations of comics who are like, I want to go to Edinburgh, and I want to, and after it I want to do Soho. Soho Theatre was the first theatre to book me for a full-length show. Before that, I'd just done like 20-minute spots in comedy clubs, and then I did the Edinburgh Festival. It was 2003. And I did my first ever full-length show. And what I truly love about Soho Theatre is, I'll be honest with you, I did 2 nights there. One was okay. One was a shambolic nightmare. My friend was in the audience, and he said, it just seemed like you wanted to be somewhere else, and we were all holding you up. Right? And I thought, it's over for me. It's over for me. I've just absolutely messed up. But Soho Theatre understand that comics need nurturing. They understand that this is her first ever full-length show, and it takes a bit of patience and space to find your feet. And they trusted me, and they saw potential in me, and they nurtured that potential, and they booked me again, and they included me. And a huge part of the long form comic that I am today is from having that support and nurturing from Soho Theatre, without a doubt. Not just because of the space that they provide and the incredible audiences that they attract, but because of the confidence it gave me. That someone believes in you. These guys believed in me, and so that was nearly 20 years ago. Oh, do you know what? When it is my 20th anniversary of performing at the Soho Theatre, I really hope I can have a party there. That's what I miss so much in lockdown, is hanging out at Soho Theatre Bar, which is the most fun place and ageless. I still feel 23 when I'm in there. I'll still probably behave 17 when I'm in there. So in that respect, Soho has been invaluable to me. And also, you know, as time's gone on with them, it's I've seen the other comics that they have done the same thing for, and from all over the world. You know, not just British comics. Like Sam Simmons, I've seen there. Way before his superstardom, I saw Trevor Noah in a teeny tiny room at the Soho Theatre. You know, I've seen so many brilliant acts, and then when acts get huge and they want somewhere somewhere they trust and is smaller to just get back to their roots and try new material. They go back to Soho. So I had a lovely time recently going to see one of our biggest household names, Michael McIntyre, at 10 o'clock at night. After my own show, I sort of did my own show, went for a pizza and ran back to see McIntyre, like seeing this guy that normally plays to like 12,000 people in this, room for, I think, 200. It was just such a joy. And I have been to India, of course, with them last year for the first time, and that was magical.
I was going to say that one thing that I find really exciting is the sort of working with international artists and giving them a platform in the UK, and that sort of potential for creative growth and exchange and collaboration. And we've produced Veer Das at Soho, who's in India, and toured him around the UK, and like accessing or having the opportunity to work with him to find his audience in the UK is so exciting. And taking you to Mumbai, which was crazily only last year.
Yeah.
For you as a comedian, was it like to perform shows in Mumbai and be there within that community?
Oh, it was incredible because, firstly, so I grew up with loads and loads of second generation Indian friends. So I thought I knew, a lot of, I thought I knew it. I'd go there and it would all be very familiar to me. And then you actually go, everything. I wanted to make a formal apology to everyone that I have teased about when they go, like my brother, he spends a lot of time in India and he's always saying to me, Shappi, you haven't lived until you've been to India. And I've always been like, oh, you hippie. And I went there and I wanted to just apologize to everyone for ever mocking their travel tales. India is another world entirely, and I wanted to contact my Indian friends in London. In fact, I did. I was like, I honestly had no idea like when you go away to India that you come to this like other universe. It blew my mind in the way that every person that goes there for the first time describes to me. And also, I tell you something that I really loved about going to India as an Iranian and looking the way I do. I fit in. I really fit in. Like, I look Indian. And in England, everyone's always asking me like, oh, so where are you from originally? In India, no one did. And I'd not had that experience before. I was always like the odd one out, not always in a bad way, but it was always noticed. And I was like, yes, I'm at home. I'm at home. So I went to a shop and I bought loads of clothes to really fit in. And then the gigs were so much fun because I had got the impression that Indian audiences are going to be more conservative with a small c. And actually that wasn't the case. It really was a case of people are people. And I kind of thought, oh gosh, I better not say this bit about, and I'll be really honest with you, I was a bit nervous about doing, not nervous isn't the right word, but I was aware that I was going to do material about being a single parent. And then I thought, oh, they're going to judge me? And of course not. And that's just my perception of Indian culture. And I'd be the same if I went to Iran as well. I think, oh God, everyone there is going to be like my parents' friends and they're going to judge me. And of course people don't, because or they might, but none of that mattered, is my point. And it really was stand-up comedy. It really was people coming to watch someone talk about the world as they see it.
Yeah. And
doing it in a way that includes them and brings them on board. And whether you're doing that in India or whether you're doing that in Scunthorpe in the north of England, it's not the seismic mental shift at all. It really wasn't. And so, of course, likewise, when we bring Indian comedians over, you see the same thing within our audiences. It's just people wanting to connect. So that was really exciting and fun. And I mean, you know, I could talk about the food as well, but I'm sure people watching this have heard so many people from England just going, I can't believe, I mean, I couldn't take Indian restaurants in London seriously. I still can't. I can't take them seriously.
Yeah.
I just, yeah, you go to the Britannia in Mumbai and it's over. It's over. Late night curries in London are like, what even is this? Sorry.
No, that's amazing. Like, just hearing you reminisce about your experiences in Mumbai just makes me realise how important it is to keep that kind of exchange going, and having artists from India in, you know, bring them to the UK and have more opportunities for people to go over there to like branch out and connect and find, you know, shared experiences and learn new ones, etc. Better food.
Oh yeah, I mean, I cried. I was at the Britannia in Mumbai and the food was so good I cried, because it was Parsi food as well. And so I'm from Iran, so obviously it had similarities with a very popular Iranian dish, what I had, zeresh polo. But it was in an Indian style and it was so incredible. It just went from my fingertips and my nose and my eyeballs and my soul. It was soul food. It was, and I had a little cry and I phoned my brother and said, I'm in Mumbai, because he goes to India a lot. Yeah. And I was like, at last, Shappi's gone to India. And you know what, I really, it made me sad that I didn't go there when I was younger, when I would have had the opportunity to stay there for a long time. I really hope that there'll be a time in my life when I'll spend like a year in India, you know.
And absorb it completely.
Yeah, I'll be totally honest with you. Like, the first day, I was like, I can't handle it. I can't handle it. It was so different, and it just ran at you from all sides. And the drivers, you know, like they're people who drive in Mumbai, they're not 100% sure that you want to live. They have no way of knowing that you definitely want to live. And so you have to tell them that you would like to stay alive and bang on their bonnet. And learning to do that within an hour of turning up was wild.
Just thinking of you banging on everyone's bonnet.
I was like to live, don't kill me.
Oh, Shappi. Well, but two things. When we go back to Mumbai, we have to eat there. Yes. And let's make the party happen for your 20th anniversary. Yes,
definitely. That's a much more important landmark for me than my 50th birthday, which is, I think, is going to be in the same year or the year later. But yeah, I think all of this lockdown, I've just been dreaming about a party at the Soho Theatre.
We have to. We have to make it happen.
Yes.
Well, Shappi, thank you so much for talking to me about all your experiences working in London at Soho Theatre and in stand-up and going to India. Yeah, it's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you and hear all your insights.
My pleasure. And I can't wait to go back with you guys.
Brilliant.